Cadillac chips. In the beginning, we have a brief description of the problem. In 1990, General Motors installed a computer in Cadillac Civil and Devil models in response to customer complaints that the climate control system would stop working. But these chips produce too much carbon dioxide, which violates normal driving based pollution standards. So in 1995, General Motors agreed to recall nearly 500,000 vehicles and pay fines for emissions violations. Here we have ethical problems. Number one is the transparency and disclosure. So GM's failure to inform regulatory authorities about the design change in the computer chips, which led to excessive emissions, raises concerns about its transparency and accountability. Number two, we have public health and safety. The emissions issue raises risks to public health and safety due to increased carbon dioxide emissions, highlighting a potential violation of the ethical principle to hold paramount safety, health, and welfare of the public. Number three is deceptive acts. So if GM knowingly misrepresented the severity of the emissions issue or regulatory compliance requirements in public statements, it would violate the ethical principles against deceptive acts. Talking about the affected parties in either positive or negative ways. Number one is the main company, General Motors. So effects such as financial costs, reputation damage, and potential legal consequences are included. And all employees within GM, like executives, engineers, and technicians, are directly involved in addressing the emissions issue. Number two are the Cadillac owners, the owners of the cars affected. So owners of the affected civil and devil models are directly impacted by the recall and safety and potential safety, as they may experience inconvenience and potential costs related to the recall. Number three is the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA). They are responsible for enforcing environmental regulations, including those related to emission standards. EPA officials are involved in identifying violations, negotiating penalties, and ensuring compliance with environmental laws. Number four is the Justice Department. They're involved in legal proceedings against GM for violating pollution standards. They represent the government's interest in enforcing environmental laws and ensuring compliance. The last affected party is the environmental advocacy groups. So, non governmental organizations focused on environmental protection and advocacy may monitor and engage with cases like this. So, seeking to ensure accountability and promote stricter enforcement of environmental regulations. Talking about the ethical issues, number one, the ethical issues from NSPE, the National Society of Professional Engineers. Number one here is the professional competence. So, engineers at General Motors are obligated to perform their duties only in their areas of their competence. The design changes made to the computer chips and their unintended consequences, resulting in excessive carbon dioxide emissions, raise questions about the engineer's competence in understanding the implications of their actions on emissions standards and environmental regulations. Failure to possess the necessary expertise to assess and address these issues ethically violates this principle. The second issue is the public safety, health, and welfare. So, engineers have a paramount obligation to hold the safety, health, and welfare of the public above all other considerations. The emissions issue, if left unaddressed, poses risks to public health due to increased pollution levels. So, failure to prioritize public safety and environmental protection in the decision making process violates this principle, as it compromises the well being of individuals and communities affected by the emissions. The third issue is talking about the integrity. So, engineers are required to be honest and impartial, serving with fidelity the public, their employers, and clients. So the failure of GM to disclose the design changes in the computer chips, as well as any other attempts to misrepresent the severity of the emissions issue, undermine integrity and honesty. Violating this principle. The fundamental principles affected. The fundamental principles affected included integrity, and like if GM avoided to disclose the changes in the computer chips that resulted in excessive carbon dioxide emissions by choice, then they violated the principle of integrity. Number two is objectivity. Threats to objectivity included the decision making process of General Motors. If it was influenced by the financial benefits or to avoid the negative reputation, then the principle would be violated. Number three is confidentiality. If General Motors violated confidentiality regarding sensitive information related to the emission scandal, it could put the company's reputation and trust at risk. This may lead to the leakage of private information or the erosion of a stakeholder trust. The last one is the professional behavior. So, GM's behavior from initially installing the problematic chips to their response to government inquiries raises questions about professional behavior. They appear to prioritize avoiding litigation and minimizing costs over ethical considerations such as environmental responsibility and public health. The last point here is the line drawing technique implemented. In the left, we have the negative paradigm, and to the far left is the negative paradigm, and the far right is the positive paradigm. And in the middle, we have three hypothetical situations. So, talking about the negative paradigm, which is being the General Motors ignored the environment and installed chips and Cadillacs violated pollution standards. And the positive paradigm talk about GM tackles emissions through recalls, fines, and innovative compliance solutions. In the middle, you have the first hypothetical situation, which is GM denies wrongdoing, investigates emissions issue with limited transparency, hindering progress towards resolution. The second hypothetical is GM admits emission problem, recalls some Cadillacs for fix, but not all issues resolved. The third hypothetical is GM works with environmental agencies, experts, and stakeholders to create sustainable solutions and invest in cleaner technologies for future vehicles. And the real situation described by the case lies between the second hypothetical situation and the third one. Thank you for listening.